Welcome to Sweet Tea Talks. I'm Sweet Tea. On today's episode, I want to focus on my walk with God and how God has worked in my life. I'm going to try to go as chronologically as I can, but I may hop around a little bit um, as I remember. So, God has always worked in my life. If I look back on my life, um, I can see some of the situations where God has um, been in my life, kept me out of certain things, and put people into my life for lessons that I needed to learn. But um, those are all little ways. But I really want to focus on what has brought me to really become vocal about my faith and how I became to really trust in the Lord. Um, so in 2011, my 9-year-old child was diagnosed with kidney cancer, and I'm not going to go into all the details surrounding our journey with cancer. Um, I wrote and published a book, really basically, so I could deal with the feelings I was having as a caregiver and as a parent. Um, I don't know if any of you know somebody that has had a child with cancer, or you yourself are a parent of a child that has had cancer, but it is really hard to process. And writing has always been for me a way to process my feelings. And so I wrote it basically just so I could process my own feelings, and then published it. So if any of you are interested in reading that, just message me and I will send you the link for that. But this is really about how God has affected my life. Um, and there's a few ways in that moment of when she had cancer that God has come into my life. I didn't know it then. I only realized that it was God doing, bringing people into my life later, after when I was writing the book. um, I was realizing that uh, it was really God that brought those people into my life, because there was way too many coincidences to be coincidences. Um, so in 2011, my 9-year-old got diagnosed with kidney cancer. She had surgery to take out the kidney and tumor. And after we graduated from ICU, we went into a room. Back then, those rooms had 3 people to a room, so 2 roommates. And when we got to our room, there was no one there. It was just us. And so she got to pick which bed she wanted. And so she wanted the one by the window that looked up at the pretty hills. And so we got situated, and she was supposed to start chemotherapy, um, the following day. And I had to explain to her that she was going to have to do that. And I was explaining that she would have to take this medicine to get her better, to make cancer go away, and she was probably going to lose her hair. And she said no, she wasn't going to do that. And if it's going to make her hair fall out, she's not going to do it. She started crying. I started crying. Um, I didn't know where to go at that point, what to say to her. And just at that moment, there were 2 people that I didn't know were standing there. Were standing in the doorway, and they had heard our conversation. And it was a father and daughter. And the daughter was probably a couple years older than my own. And the father asked me, can my daughter talk to your daughter? And I said, yeah. So I went over to where he was in the doorway, and the daughter went over to my daughter and started talking, and I couldn't really make out what they were saying. He was telling me that the father was telling me while they were talking that his daughter had had cancer as well, and she was back for treatment. And so all of a sudden, while we were talking, I heard his daughter say, bald is beautiful too, and whipped off the wig that she was wearing. I had no idea that she didn't have hair, but whipped off the wig and showed her beautiful bald head, and made my daughter feel comfortable enough that other people were going through it as well, and she wasn't the only one. She wasn't alone in it. Not having hair isn't as big of a deal as sometimes people make it out to be, even though it is traumatic. I can't imagine um, losing your hair, uh, knowing that you're sick and losing your hair. I can't imagine as a patient going through that. As a caregiver, I was having a hard time because my daughter was hurting. But because of that girl saying that to my daughter was able to go through her treatment, be strong. From that point on, she was super strong in everything, in all the treatments that she had. Um, so there was that, and we're still friends with them to this day. They're great people, and I would do anything for them, either one of them. Um, the next, and I knew, well, at the time I didn't know. Now I know that God brought those people to that situation in our room. We could have had any roommate. We could have had anybody in our room. And we did have, because we stayed in the hospital for 30 days, we did have a lot of roommates and a lot of people, stories that were shared with me, and I shared ours, um, of different things that they were going through, and was able to take from that. And I'm sure that was God working in our lives too. But this particular moment, it was definitely God bringing those two people at the exact moment we needed them. Then, after the following day, after she started her first treatment, the next day, after that, so it was 2 days later, that she was scheduled to get radiation. And as a caregiver, as a parent, it is so hard to sign documents to basically allow them to give your child poison. And it was extremely difficult to do that, whether it was for the chemo, when I would look at the chemo bags hanging there on the pole and reading that caution, and I couldn't even be around when she went to the bathroom because it was so caustic, and knowing that was going into your child. But on the day of radiation, I had to sign paperwork for that too, because she needed radiation to her chest and radiation to her abdomen, because it was, they thought at the time that it had gotten to a stage 4 and it had metastasized in her lungs. So as I'm there signing the paperwork, I was in a daze, and in the waiting room, so they took my daughter in to get the radiation, to precisely know where they were going to give the radiation. And there was a waiting room, and I didn't know it at the time because I wasn't paying attention. There were two separate areas: one waiting area for patients that are waiting to get radiation, and the other one for people that were with them. And I sat down just wherever was the first seat because I was so out of it and crying and hysterical, and just not knowing where I was sitting, didn't know that there was two areas. And there was a gentleman sitting next to me that had a gown on, obviously a patient. And I was crying kind of in the corner. And he asked me how I was. And we talked a little bit. And he was going through a divorce, got diagnosed with cancer, needed radiation, and he was going through it all by himself. And when this wasn't his first radiation treatment. So he was explaining that when he would go and leave, he would drive himself there, drive himself home, and he would have to pull over and vomit from the treatment, and that he was by himself. And it didn't stick out to me then at the time, but it stuck out to me later, just like the other people that came into our lives. Um, it stuck out to me that God had brought him into my orbit, to make me understand that, other people do go through it. Other people have it harder. Some people don't have family support. I have a large family. And even though you want people to support you in a certain way, and sometimes they don't know how, when something like this happens, they're not going to support you in the way you want them to. Just like, people don't love you in the way sometimes that you want them to, because there's different love languages. People grieve differently, and don't really understand and do their own thing. So, but for the most part, I had family that were there, and this gentleman did not. And he was concerned about me and what our family was going through, my daughter and I, and her brother, my son. And so that just stuck out to me, like, man, this guy is going through so much, and he's reaching out to us, not wrapped up in his own world. So for me, that gave me a sense of, okay, not that I was thinking, yeah, this guy has it worse, feeling pity or anything. I just felt grateful for what I did have. Um, so that was, I feel, another way that God came into my life in that moment through that man. Then there were, so all throughout, there was 6 months of treatment. So we only had 30 days in the hospital treatment, and then was outpatient. And throughout that process, there were people in my community, strangers, that reached out to us through a church that I had never gone to. I was a member of a different church and never really felt a part of that church. It never really felt like my home church, even though it was. I never felt it in my heart. And so we kind of fell off from that church. And there were strangers that reached out to us and kind of were loving on us and invited us to go to that church when we were able to. And we did at one point. We did when she was not healed completely, but going through the healing process after the treatment. And we've been there ever since. And we started going in 2012. And it is an amazing church with amazing people. And that is definitely my home church. And I know God was reaching out to me then, because he knew. God has always been reaching out to me throughout my life. I just didn't listen completely. Like, I would go to church, but my heart wasn't completely in it. And he kept trying and kept reaching out to me. And um, this time I listened, and this time it got into my heart. Um, I So there was that, and then there was, because I had to be off of work. Um, there were issues there. There were battles that I needed to fight while I was trying to be a caregiver for my daughter. There were battles I needed to fight at work, um, which ultimately um, was positive, and they came through. Doesn't matter the reason why they came through, but they did. And I was able to take care of my daughter for, I think I was out taking care of my daughter for 9 months total, from the beginning of diagnosis to getting her through, getting her strength back. I will say this, during, prior to her diagnosis, I was an angry person from work. Um, I'm sure there are people that are listening to this that have met people that are evil. I mean, if we're going to say there's good people, there's evil people too. And I define evil people, or an evil person, as somebody that gets off on hurting others, somebody that maliciously hurts others for enjoyment, for power, for whatever reason, but they get off on hurting other people. And if you want to take a psychological deep dive into it, I believe that those people that do that are actually insecure within themselves, that aren't happy in their own lives, that they have to make other people the object of their insecurity, and to be able to feel powerful or what have you. So I believe there are truly evil people in the world. And not all most of my coworkers are great people. There are those that were that I worked with that I believe are evil. And um, I was a very angry person because of that, because of what I saw them do to others and to myself. And I would bring that home sometimes, and not meaning to, but I would bring it home sometimes. I um, I remember coming home and going through the grocery store, and you know how you grab a cart and you're just shopping, going down the aisles. Well, and you know how sometimes people will stand not knowing that they're standing in the middle of the aisle, like on one side of the aisle and then looking on the other side, and so taking up the whole thing. And typically, like, I just go around people or whatever, but when I was in this angry stage and I didn't like anybody, I thought everybody was like these few people, handful of people that, in my view, were evil. I thought everyone was like that. And so I would go down with the cart. I remember grabbing my grocery cart and thinking to myself, I'd go down the aisles, and if someone was in the way, I'd think to myself, you better move, or I'm going to push this cart right into you. And I didn't, of course, but I thought that, and I felt that, and I felt that I just didn't like anybody, and I wasn't a good person to be around. And it was hard on my kids. I know it was. Um, I've come to terms with how hard it was for them, because a lot of it, most of it, was because I viewed everybody to be like that. So when this happened with my daughter, and I saw that there are really good people out there that have good hearts, it changed my view. It changed my perspective. I didn't treat everybody like those people treated me or treated others. And I wasn't thinking that everyone was like that. So that was a really big wake up call for me. And that's where I think God was involved in that too. Um, God has, in my belief, God has always watched out for me. Always. Like from car accidents to people manipulating or trying to manipulate situations, whether that be at work, whether that be in personal life. But he was always part of it and didn't let really bad things happen. I mean, obviously, cancer is bad, and I'm not saying God let that happen, even though there was somebody in my small sphere when she got diagnosed that did say to me, and it's not a person that you would expect to hear this from, said to me, I wonder what you did so bad in your life that God would do this. And that comment was after, during my daughter's diagnosis, my son had problems with his mouth when he was getting braces. It turns out to be a cyst, but at the time I thought it was another tumor. So it was very stressful when I had one child that had cancer, and then the other child I thought could potentially have a tumor in their mouth, in their jaw. And it turned out to be a cyst, and it was not a big deal. But that person said that to me after that second thing happened with my child, and I was just taken back and didn't have an answer. I just didn't say anything because I didn't know what to say. Now, if someone said that to me, I would have an answer with, my God doesn't do that. My God doesn't give people cancer because they're bad. And I don't know where the people that are watching this are at with the Bible, but that is the thinking of the First Testament, whereas the New Testament is about Jesus and about the relationship you have with Jesus. And if you watched my first episode, you're aware that having Jesus in your heart, knowing who Jesus is, and having a relationship with Jesus is the key to salvation. It's our choices that dictate sometimes things that happen to us. I'm not saying that our choices that we make justify those things happening. And sometimes it's the luck of the draw. Sometimes it's genetics that cause things. If we're talking about sickness and things. But sometimes our choices put us into predicaments, not God. Jesus is all loving, is a loving God, but, and will give you situations over and over again until you learn what it is that you need to learn, or to come to him, that you need him, um, that you can't do it by yourself. The strength that I have, or the people that have said that I'm strong, it's God's strength that they're seeing in me. It's God's light that they're seeing in me now. Now that these things have happened in my life, it's God's light. It's God's strength. I couldn't do it without him, and I know that. And so so those were a couple of things. I don't know what the people that are watching this thoughts on premonitions are, but I don't know if I would call it a premonition. But I would have dreams. I've had dreams before about things that have happened, things that are going to happen, and they have happened. This particular one is pretty major to me. I had had a dream. This was in 2019, and I'm probably going to jump back to 2014 in a little bit, but 2019, since I'm already on this subject, I'm going to talk about it. In 2019, I had a dream, and it wasn't specific other than I was shown my arms, my inner arms. I was shown my inner arms, and I got a feeling of just dread, of be careful. No, nobody said anything. It was just showing me my arms and a feeling of be careful. And that was in 2019. So, like early 2019, mid 2019, something like that. And I didn't really think about it again. And I really, even once this happened, I didn't think about it until after. So in 2020, in February 2020, I got injured at work, and didn't really know that I had gotten injured other than the fact that I had bruising and swelling on my inner arms. Did not think about the dream beforehand that I had beforehand. I did not think about it. I just thought bruising and swelling, okay, like we all get bruises, right? We all um, fall off our bikes, or, bump into something and get bruises and have swelling. No big deal, I thought. And it didn't take long for me to get symptoms. About a week later, they were in both arms, but it was both arms that were injured. But the majority of the symptoms happened to my left, and I think that it was because I wear my watch on my left, and I was noticing that it was getting like I couldn't wear it. Eventually, couldn't wear the watch because it would feel tight, and my arms would ache, and it would feel tight on there, and my fingers would swell. um I would get edema in my fingers, and my arms ached so bad that I would have to put my left arm up all the time, like have it up above my head. And that's the only way it would feel a little bit better, because I'm sure it had to do with the blood flow, the swelling, right? It was going back down towards my heart. Um, but I didn't know that at the time. So eventually, long story short, is so that happened in February. By May, I had been going into the emergency room. This was during vid time. They thought I had the vid. And would test me for that. I didn't have it. They said maybe it's just another cold. Sent away, went back, sent like high blood pressure that would seem normal for most people or some people, but my blood pressure, this was out of the ordinary for me. But still not something that they were like, oh, this is super high. And then eventually in May, they finally decided to do an ultrasound of my arms. Found out, or well, at the time it was one arm. Found a blood clot that was in my subclavicle, and from putting my one arm up, it had dislodged from my inner arm and lodged in my subclavicle, and I had a partially occlused, which means partially blocked, subclavicle vein. And then they did an ultrasound on my right arm and found a fully occlused, fully blocked brachial vein. So at that time, after that, I got put on blood thinners. This is getting super personal, but because I got put on blood thinners, I had blood in my stool, went into the emergency room, They made an OR appointment for me, gave me a colonoscopy, found a polyp. It was like, I don't know, I think he showed it to me. The doctor showed it to me. It was like that big. It was huge. Um, and the doctor had said within the year I would have gotten colon cancer. So, that's another, to me, another way. Oh, I forgot this part of the story. So then I had that removed. He removed that. He tells me that it's not cancerous, but it would have within the year turned into cancer. I got put back on the blood thinners. Well, when they took that out, they stitched up where they took the polyp out of, and a blood clot forms there. Well, when you're taking blood thinners, everywhere in your body is going to get thinner blood, and so what happened is it pushed out that blood clot that was supposed to be there where the polyp was, and I started to bleed internally, and I lost about half of my blood volume. They did not give me a blood transfusion. I didn't need one, and I didn't want one. They gave me iron so I could make my own. And then said, don't move your arms at all. Have somebody do everything for you until you can get put back on the blood thinners, until you can let yourself heal, your colon heal, and put on the blood thinners, back on the blood thinners. But during the time in the hospital, that was during vid time, and nobody was allowed in the hospital, so I was by myself, and it was pretty intense. I mean, I lost half my blood volume. I didn't know what was happening, when I was going to stop losing all that blood. And I remember praying and praying to God, not praying to heal me, even though that's important, because I had two small kids. But I prayed that, okay, if this is your will, this is your will. If this is my time, I'm ready to meet you. And that's super emotional for me even now to say that, because I trusted in God so much. I trusted in Jesus so much for his will for my life. And that's when I knew that my faith in Jesus was strong. Um, so eventually, I got out of the hospital, didn't move my arms. My kids, actually, my son, I think, was in the military at that point, and my daughter was there, and so she helped me with everything, because I couldn't do anything. I couldn't lift my arms above my heart until I could get back on the blood thinners. So that was another way I saw God, my my strength in my faith in that moment. Let me go back to 2014 real quick. 2014, I was diagnosed with gastric lymphoma and have celiacs. Celiacs caused chronic inflammation in my gut. Chronic inflammation grew to an acidic gut. The chronic acidic gut changed the cells in the stomach lining, and that's how I was diagnosed. I had all these symptoms, but I won't go into that. Which caused the gastric lymphoma. It was good. It was a stage 1. It was good that the doctor had said that was not a candidate for treatment, because the treatment is an immune suppressant treatment, and it kills your entire immune system. They had tested my bone marrow. My bone marrow was good, so I could make new white blood cells. So they had to kill all my immune system and then wait for the white blood cells in my bone marrow to mature and push out and create another immune system. And it was good that I wasn't a candidate. Wouldn't have been a candidate for 2 years, they said. So it was a watch and wait. Um, and it was a good thing because within that amount of time, I got endoscopies every 6 months, and I still had it every time. They would do a stomach mapping and do different parts of my stomach, and I had it all the way up until that 2 year mark. But it's a good thing because I changed my entire diet. I changed everything about what I did. I took it super serious. And I know that a lot of people think that it's trendy to be gluten free, or that maybe, and some people that are on the bandwagon of gluten free think that it's healthier, and it's not necessarily healthier, but it is healthier for those of us that can't have gluten. And I believe that most people have a gluten either intolerance or a full blown celiac. But that's just my belief. I'm not a doctor, and none of this is medical advice. I'm just going by my personal experience. Um, but I know people think it's a trendy thing, but it's not. There are some people, because if you have chronic inflammation, and you can research this as well. If you have chronic inflammation and chronic acidic environments, those two things combined are what cause diseases. Um, you need to have an alkaline environment in your body, um, void of inflammation. Um, when you have that's the when you get cancer or another disease. But again, I'm not a doctor, so do your research on that if you're interested. But this is back to God. That's when so I changed my entire diet. 2 years comes up, the doctor says, okay, now you can have treatment. We go into get another endoscopy. I don't have it. They can't. Their biopsies. There's no cancer. And I said, well, I'm not getting the treatment, and let's watch and wait. And so every year I would get an endoscopy, and still do. Every year I get an endoscopy, no cancer. So I had an appointment with my oncologist, and he said it's sporadic remission. Like, it happens. It's rare, but it happens. And I think it's, again, not only God, but it's changing what I'm doing, because God can heal, absolutely. But I think back to one of my original points, our choices. Now that I know that I can't have gluten and I can't have dairy, I don't. I don't cheat, have a cheat day and eat it. And there have been people in my life that have, like, will say, oh, well, this pizza is gluten free when it's not, and trying to, oh, you'll just get the runs. It's bigger than just getting the runs. It's changing the cells in your body because you can't have it. So there will be people sometimes that will do that. But you just have to be strong and stick to your guns. And it was, like I said before, it's God that gives me the strength to say no, to stand up to people, to stick to the diet that I need to stick to, because I know now what it causes. Um, so that was the 2014. So I jumped back a little bit. Um, so I talked about my time in the hospital when I injured myself and my own cancer diagnosis. I'm cancer free still, just changing my diet. Um, and that to me is another belief in my relationship with God, and a belief in seeing Him work in my life and seeing the people that He brings into my life. From I travel, and I've met people wonder how I can travel the way I travel, and I just meet people along the way, and people will tell me their stories, like sitting on an airplane, people will tell me their life story, or in an Uber. Like I had a lady from Alabama uh, took me to the airport, and she told me her whole life story. And she's like, I've never done this before. I've never told my whole life story. And when she dropped me off at the airport, before she dropped me off at the airport, we prayed together. Um, People that I've met on the airplane, somehow we just click, and God just knows who is the perfect person, not the perfect person, but the people that are needed in each other's lives. Will sit me next to somebody that needs to talk about something, or sit that person next to me when it's needed, that he knows who is needed to be in each other's lives, if that makes sense. Um, you may not see God in your everyday life, but you may not be looking for it. I wasn't looking for it in any of these situations when I was right in the heart of the trauma, right in the heart of it. I didn't see it, and chances are you won't either. Um, you may look back and see it, but if you're in the middle of something, whether it's a divorce, a sickness, a loss of a job, um, anything that you're in the middle of, any struggle that you're in the middle of, it definitely helps to just stop and look maybe at the bigger picture. I know it's really hard, and it's easy to say, and if you haven't gone through what you're specifically going through, but just know that everyone goes through something. And I've told you the things that I've gone through to strengthen my relationship with God. And it strengthens me to where when I'm going through a struggle, it's not, it hurts. It still hurts, and it's still painful, but my eyes are on God. My trust that He'll take care of me is in God. Um, that's my so if you're going through something, um, try to slow it down to where you can focus your eyes back to God and not to the struggle that you're in the middle of. Um, and then hopefully once you're out of that struggle, because it's life, right, weans and wanes, and you go through positive stuff, and then there'll be struggles, and then but when you're on the positive side of it, you know, hopefully you'll be able to see what God's path is for you, whether it's to just share your story with somebody, that hopefully it helps somebody with their struggle. Hopefully something that you say, the person that you might meet at a restaurant, if the next table over or the next stool over, just have a conversation, because you never know what someone is going through with the people that are around you. I love meeting new people, and finding out about different people, and the people that I've come into contact with um, have definitely left an impression. Every single one of them have left an impression on my life, and my hope is that I would leave some sort of impression on them, not just me, but the path that God has me on, for whatever that He has me on, the path that He has me on. And He knows from the moment we're born what path we're supposed to be on. And it might not seem like that, and you might seem like you don't know what path to be on, but just trust in God and start to have a relationship with Him, and you'll find that peace in your heart, because that is the ultimate, to me, is peace. I have learned along the way that peace is the most important thing to me. And the peace that I found is in God, is the peace that only He can give me. So I hope you enjoyed my second episode. Join me on my next episode. It should be about DNY holistic. This is back to and again, I'm not a doctor, but I believe in holistic treatments. I believe our bodies can heal themselves, and if we give it uh, the right food, the right herbs. So my next episode will be about holistic living. Thank you.